Welcome back to our interview with Galveston County Henry Trochesset. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. Sam, you have some questions?
Well, one of the things, Norm and I started this meet in the middle because I'm kind of left of center, Norm's right of center. Sometimes there are some issues that I may be a little more conservative on. But one of the things that we agree on is our public servants need our support. I think sometimes it is perceived that some don't support or back the blue, but I think the entire community needs to back those individuals that put their lives on the line. So 35 years of service, greatly appreciate that, and what the others do to protect our communities. That being said, in our communities, there are sometimes challenges in relationships. What is the Sheriff's Department doing to improve relationships in our community? And we've seen nationwide protests. We hadn't had as much of that locally, but are there any programs specifically to help deputies be more visible and interact with the public, the community better?
There's nothing more. What was the word that they use on there? Community policing in a sheriff's office, because you have resident deputies. Do you know of any problem that the community has in Galveston County with the sheriff's office at all?
Well, one of the things that has been brought to me is that individuals that are arrested have trouble sometimes bonding out. Forgive me for not knowing all the terminology.
Be glad to help you with that answer, real quick.
A pre-bond, a pre-trial bond.
That's being worked out right now between the commissioner's court and the judges. Statutorily, there's a pending lawsuit with the ACLU, but statutorily, and matter of fact, I had a meeting with the ACLU and one of their lawyers, and I as sheriff have only 2 options. I get a court order or a bond. I can't create that. I get the court order from the judge or a bond set, and once that's done, and through statute, I can't lock my front door. No matter how many inmates are in my jail, I cannot lock the front door, and I can't open the back door. So what you're saying is I have to manage the problem, but I have no ability to fix that.
You as sheriff can't fix it individually. This goes back to policy and voters speaking up. I know this. We just mentioned briefly that this lawsuit has come up about this issue because oftentimes individuals seem to be guilty until proven innocent. Is the way they feel.
Well, that's what we have mentioned about the Galveston County. Any county jail is a pre-trial detention center. That's why people complain. Well, they're in jail, but they're not in the penitentiary. They're in a county jail. They need to be treated a little differently than when they're in the penitentiary.
Well, with that being said, for those individuals in situations, and there are so many different examples across the country. I guess we're trying to stay specific to Galveston County. An ounce of prevention is kind of like worth a pound of cure. If there was some way for us to keep the cost down on the front end, because it becomes a domino effect. Say someone goes out in Galveston Friday, Saturday night, drinks too much, parties too much, and gets arrested. Now, if they don't have the money to bond out, whether that's $500, $1,500, depending on what they did, and they miss work on Monday, I know it was their individual responsibility, but maybe that's a better way to handle it, so that because they miss work, maybe they get fired.
Are you aware of what's being put in place right now?
Well, update us. That's why we're talking to the sheriff.
We have an exclusive.
Yeah. Breaking news now. Breaking news here on
but,
Meet in the Middle Chronicles.
But because of that lawsuit, okay, a panel has been set, and actually it's chaired by Stephen Holmes.
Okay.
And I'm one of the voting members to it, and we're trying to put things into place. The county commissioners have hired more employees to work for what they call the pretrial. And they're doing background checks to find out what their status is, to find out if they have the finances or someone that could come in to bond them out.
This is kind of a triage approach.
No doubt,
Yeah.
no doubt. The minute they're arrested, and they hand this information to the magistrate when they come into the county jail, they hand the information to the magistrate. So the magistrate, while he's reading that individual his rights, can go through this before he sets the bond and can, okay, it says here that you may be able to come up with your DWI and you may be able to come up with maybe $50 to bond out.
Okay.
Okay, your bond's set at $50. But they set the bond, not us.
Okay.
Now, at that point, they're trying to put it back in place to where if he doesn't bond out within so many hours, he goes back before the magistrate again. And actually, they're working with Hitchcock right now because they've hired the magistrates from Hitchcock, the city of Hitchcock.
Okay.
So we have, I believe, 8 or 10 to where they can keep the magistrate session going.
How many magistrates do we have in Galveston County?
I hate to tell you, I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know
Yeah.
because of what they did.
Yeah,
but think
that's
about
just
it. Every
it.
mayor, depending on what's
Yeah.
going on. But this is more for the county jail issue.
Right.
And I believe they're going to get a district attorney to make sure someone's there during this magistrate time or this hearing. I would say get that information more from Stephen or from the district attorney's office. But it's being put into place. Thursday of last week, there were misdemeanors in it, pretrial misdemeanors in the county jail that were in the 38, I believe. That's it. Pretrial misdemeanors. And I've got over 1,000, 1,100 and something inmates. Only 38 were pretrial misdemeanors. So that thing you're discussing has been kind of in place working.
Yeah. Since the lawsuit?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's been, what, 6 months?
Actually, it's been really going on for the last, they've been working on it and it's still a work in progress, but I think it's moving pretty good. Matter of fact, we have another meeting coming up and we started actually putting a criminal history in the packet. So not only will the magistrate have to find out what kind of net worth he can come up with to bond out, but what kind of criminal history he has.
The individual.
Like the governor was coming out, what was the individual that was let out on a simple system you were discussing, but he had an extensive criminal history and he got out and he shot that DPS trooper and killed him.
Oh, yeah, that's what I want.
So we're trying to put a mechanism into place also to find out, is he a threat to others, families,
What kind of
the
history
community,
he
what kind of criminal history he has. So we'll find out what his worth is, what can he come up with. You know, and I've said it and I'll say it again. Being in the job that we're in, you get arrested, Sam, and it's your first arrest.
Use Norm.
Well,
I
I'm
don't
saying-
want to. I'm just.
Norm gets arrested. Norm gets arrested. Norm's family is tripping over themselves trying to figure out how to bond him out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put him in the cell with all them other
Depends
crooks.
how me and the wife are doing at
Yeah,
the time.
yeah,
Okay. Well, she may, but you know, your friends, your family, you've got, I mean, people do. When they're their first
Yeah.
arrest, depending on what the charge is, they're bending over themselves, tripping over themselves to get down there to try to bond him out as fast as they can. Don't put him in the cell with other people. I'm coming down to get him. My phone rings constantly. Second arrest, maybe not as fast, but they're still heading down to come help Norm. Third, fourth, and fifth, usually my phone's ringing saying they're not learning their lesson. Leave them in there. I don't want you to let them out. If they're thinking I'm just going to let them out and it's my, no, I'm waiting for the court order of the bond. But if you look at the numbers in our jail, in every jail in the state of Texas, if not the nation, there's a recidivism problem. It's not their first arrest. It's usually not their second. It's probably their third, fourth, or fifth. Much less convictions. That's really the issue.
Well, you know, it is a subject that I think, yes, there's personal responsibility, but there is also on the other side of the coin, the officers sometimes escalate issues. I'll give you a personal example. One night, I had a vehicle running hot, and I got stopped. Actually, your brother was there. He came late. He wasn't the first officer there. But he came up, and he was trying to explain to the guy, like, Sam's a good guy. He's not, like, running from the cops. but the Lamarck officer wanted to give me an evading arrest charge, which is a felony. At 21 years old, 22, I didn't know what that meant. But I quickly found out that that's not what I wanted to have on a record. And lucky enough, we had access to an attorney. It got reduced because I really wasn't running from the police.
You weren't fleeing.
But the officer knew the difference. I was in front of my girlfriend's house. He could have de-escalated that and said, you know what, you should have slowed down, you wasn't running, and just gave me a speeding ticket. But he wanted to, you might beat the rap, but you won't beat the ride. And those types of situations still occur with young people not understanding the system and then maybe pleading out or accepting something. Everybody doesn't have access to an attorney. I was lucky enough I had access to counsel that fixed that situation, because had it not been fixed, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today speaking to you in the position that I'm in as a member of the community, because it would have my life trajectory of my life would have went in a totally different, based on the opinion of an officer that night. And Chris actually tried to get him to just let me go. He said, well, I can't overrule him. He was here first. So, it ended up.
Well, let me ask you, before you go into that, but in the larger context.
I want to come back to that because I want to hear his reply.
But I want to ask in the larger context, in your training, is it different now than it was 20 years ago? Do you actually, tell the guys, look, not every time, you pull somebody over, you have to write them up, for every little thing that they've done?
Yes.
It's
called officer discretion.
Yeah.
And times have changed a lot. A lot. As while I've been not just sheriff, as a law enforcement officer, I mean, it's a dramatic change from 10, 20, 30 years ago. So incidents like yours occur, but I think they're, to an extent, rare in what we discussed before. That's why we have to have supervisors. That's why from time to time people lose their jobs.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is going to be a good patrolman.
No, they're not.
Not everybody's going to be a good employee. But overwhelmingly, the numbers of law enforcement through the nation, if not the world, that percentage is very small. It's unfortunate you had to go through that. On the other hand of that too, in the last 35 years I've been here, to put someone in jail, the amount of paperwork involved, they've got to really want to do a little bit of work just to aggravate you.
And sometimes they do.
And sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But I think overwhelmingly that doesn't occur.
Well, when we look at world population, the United States is about 5% of the world population, has 25% of the world's criminals locked up. I think that is a problem.
What's the population with the United States with people on medication, drugs, abusing?
I don't know the numbers of those that have abused, but I do know even with that statistic that those laws are not enforced equitably across the board. And I'll give you an example. I was a student at Texas A&M University. Unfortunately, there's a lot of drugs on campus at Texas A&M University and other PWIs, predominantly white institutions. Because one, the students
I've
have
learned a new acronym.
Yeah, HBCU, historically black college and university, PWI, predominantly white institution. So the students often have access to more resources. They get access to more drugs, but they don't get equal punishment for those same drugs. Because I think when officers that relate to these young people, when they see them, they see their son, they see their nephew, they see their daughter, and they give them the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, when they see minority students or minority individuals that they encounter, they have to go by the letter of the law. And my thing is, I don't want to see more kids necessarily locked up. but I want my kids to have the benefit of the doubt too, because they may be young and making stupid decisions. Now, thank God, none of my kids.
Most of them are young.
Yeah,
or making stupid
none of my
decisions.
kids that I know of have been caught up in any of that activity. All of my kids have been great, but I do know individuals, and I've been young myself, that when you're late teens and early 20s, you're hanging out and you're doing things that young people do. And all I'm saying is give them the benefit of the doubt. And we talked about the Santa Fe issue, and this is a very sensitive subject, and I don't want anyone to get offended by it. But when officers say they fear for their life, and they had to shoot center mass on individuals because they had to eliminate the threat, I find it kind of surprising that when they went in, they didn't have to eliminate that threat. I don't want to see anyone get killed, but I would hope that they would use the same restraint when they come up on minorities in similar situations where they saw a cell phone. Oh, I thought it was a gun. I had to shoot. Oh, I thought he had something in his hand. I had to shoot. I had to eliminate the threat. Because I've talked to officers and they say, we are trained to shoot center mass. How do you go in that school after such a tragedy and not shoot that individual?
I know more about that than I can probably explain to you. And after the trial, and after maybe the trial comes out, and if there's any videos that come out, we can discuss that.
Yeah, we'll be discussing that day in our third segment.
Yeah,
But
as far as that, I'm going to say
Yeah.
young and acting stupid has nothing to do with race.
No, it
Nothing
doesn't.
to do with race. And maybe it's the fact that in this area we don't have those issues because, again, we got 60 miles of beach. We're more of a tourist community. We see those youth that come down and want to act like idiots on more of an occasion.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have the issues we do in this area, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know of the vast, race has nothing to do with acting stupid.
No. Again, young people make young decisions, and it's not always wise. But sometimes it seems like there's unequal punishment for the same equal offense.
I'm not a judge, so I can't answer that one.
Well, sometimes it seems that some individuals may stay locked up a little bit longer. They don't get bailed out as soon. Maybe family didn't have money. I don't know. There's a lot of factors that go into it.
Well, and that's what's part of what's getting worked out now is the fact of what can their family provide, what can their family come up with, and I believe that bond is trying to be met according to what if he's able to come up with 10,000 and you're only able to come up with 1,000, your 1,000 means the same as much as his 10,000 does. I think that's the dynamic of the bond. Each individual in each case has its own merit.
People can play with the numbers then because they can hide money.
That's right.
But
and that's it.
well, let me get to a point which I think we were going to, but then we pulled back. And I don't want you to speak as Henry Trochesset. I don't want you to speak as the sheriff of Galveston County. I'd like you to speak on a higher level of a police officer in an executive position that has 35 years experience. A lot of people believe institutionally that the blue protects itself. And the best example I have of that, and if you don't want to comment on it, that's fine, but is the Tamir Rice example.
12-year-old.
Yeah, a 12-year-old in Ohio. This
Shot
was
in the park.
3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now, I've dealt with emergency situations. When I was an outdoor guide, we had some life and death deals. I had to be trained in emergency situations as a security officer. I came across people wanting to shoot people a few times. Number one rule that I was always taught in emergency situations is make sure you're aware, situational awareness. Don't just go running in somewhere not knowing what the heck's going on. In the Rice incident in Ohio, a call came into the police and they said there's a young black child with a gun in the park. Police car, 2 people in it, drive up into the park, not 4 feet from the kid. It's on video. Guy jumps out of the front door and shoots him dead. Now, I don't want to put you in the spot here about what transpired, but the investigation cleared the police officer, which absolutely boggled my mind. because the cop should not have been 4 feet from the kid to begin with. He should have been, if somebody says there's somebody with a gun in a park, I'm a few blocks away and approaching that park slowly so I can, get what the situation is. The board cleared the police officer, and I'm just,
What'd the grand jury do? You don't know?
there was no grand jury.
Well, see, that's something different in Ohio than Texas. Any officer-involved shooting, we investigate it. Matter of fact, we're investigating another one for Galveston PD right now. We have an outside agency anytime we have an event. Even a car accident, as far as our people go. I don't want our employees investigating our own vehicle accidents. If we're involved in an accident, have an outside agency come in and do it. The state passed a law at the last session that if there's an in-custody death, say we have someone pass away in the jail, and he could be 85 years old, but we have an outside entity come in and do that investigation. We're not doing that internally. But anytime that occurs in Texas, you're going before a grand jury.
Okay. So that's good to know. In general, though, do you understand that minorities might look at these institutions and say that they protect their own?
Well, I guess they could say that, but again, we're looking at something more that occurs up in the Northeast than in this area down here. Mm-hmm. We don't seem to have the issues that occur in those areas in this area. We don't.
And let me
maybe
support
because
you.
we went to school with them. I don't know. I don't know what the dynamics that's changed that we just don't have those.
And let me support you in that. There was a shooting at a club out here. Was it on 6? Where somebody started shooting people.
That was in Lamarck.
In Lamarck, and
Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve? Christmas.
It was just in that timetable of the Black Lives Matter movement, what was going on in Missouri, and tensions were high. And to the credit of Galveston leadership, of which you are a major part, it did not escalate at all. The commissioners, the sheriffs, the pastors all said, "Wait a second, before you start judging,
it wasn't an issue.
Let's see what happened." And boy, everybody was on pins and needles when that happened, because we just been seeing what was happening in Missouri.
Yes, sir.
And sure enough, it got diffused like that. And not because you're here. I've said it before. It's to the credit of you and the commissioners and the county leaders that worked, to establish those relationships.
The
that
police chief
resulted
in
a
Texas City.
high degree of trust.
And they did trust us, and they've told me before, if there's any issue, you call us. Because there is a trust there. They do believe in what we're doing, and they trust that we're going to do what's right in these investigations, and I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's there.
Well, let me close us out.
Yeah.
All right. This is Sam Collins and Norman Pappous with Galveston County Sheriff Henry Trochesset, and we'll be back in just a second.